The Oklahoma City Thunder, we expected them to be bottom 5 in the Western Conference. Definitely didn't expect them to be in the running for a play-in spot, let's be honest with ourselves. So the major headlines for the OKC Thunder this year: Shai Gilgeous is a star, he proved as such. Thought OKC reached on Josh Giddey, and he proved otherwise. Luguentz Dort sustained his improvements from last season and kind of built on them. And I want to talk about the Thunder's solid defense as well. But starting with Shai, a couple people were skeptical as to whether Shai could continue the success he showed last season. And a lot of people were still skeptical as if like he was actually a franchise player. Like, could he be OKC's franchise player? There were still some questions out there. Not from me, I believed so. But in his second year away from Chris Paul, people just wanted to see more. And honestly, he proved as such. Like, he had another year of dropping 24, 25 a game on decent efficiency while not having a lot of shooting around him, not having a lot of shot creating talent around him. Defenses were still focused on Shai coming in and night out when they knew they were going to play the Thunder. Everybody game planned against Shai, but he was still able to go out there and do his thing. As for Josh Giddey, I will be one of the first to say it. When he was announced at the number 7 pick for OKC, I was shocked. In my mock draft, I had him going in the lottery, but towards the end of it, I thought the Golden State Warriors had a chance to get Josh Giddey with their lottery pick at 14. But OKC drafted him at 7, so obviously Sam Presti saw something that nobody else saw, and we have to say he was correct, as Josh Giddey became OKC's best passer, most prolific and efficient passer. I mean, that was literally what he was heralded for out of the 2021 class. He was probably the best playmaker, like strictly playmaker passer out of the 2021 class, and it translated early on and throughout the season for 2022. Moving to Luguentz Dort, he had kind of a breakout year last year. He's gone from somebody who in the playoffs, in the pandemic playoffs, the Rockets were literally leaving him open and not defending him on the perimeter. They were like begging him to shoot. He went from one of those guys to somebody who's attempting 7 threes per game. Like, the confidence shift is crazy. I know Dort didn't shoot the best percentage from 3, but he's still confident in his 3-point shot, and it's evident that he still wants to improve his consistency from out there. But in terms of just scoring the ball, he got a lot better. He's really good at slashing and getting to the rim. He's obviously not the tallest guy. He's only like 6'3". He doesn't have the highest vertical in the world. He's athletic, but he's not the bounciest athlete in the NBA, so it's not like he's finishing above the rim and dunking on everybody. He's got really good body control, and he's able to use like his strong shoulders. I don't know if I have to pause that, but he's got a good upper frame, and he's able to use that to his advantage to absorb contact when driving to the rim. I also want to talk about OKC's defense as a whole. This team had the 18th best defensive rating. I mean, there's a lot of playoff teams that have a defensive rating worse than that. They just really played hard, honestly. Like, there's obviously not a lot of talent, but there's a lot of youth and young guys that are going to play hard every night. And Mark Dagnall got the best out of this bunch on the defensive end, and I think that's worth praising. So there's one star on this team, and that is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's their top scorer, certified 3-level scorer, despite a down year from 3. This year, he really improved his ability to get to the free throw line. That was kind of an area of concern. His first year in OKC, that was a concern of his game, his ability to get to the free throw line. But he really improved that this year. He's kind of rounding out every wrinkle in his scoring approach. He's a good playmaker. He's an offensive superstar, honestly. And his defense is solid enough. It's still improving. I think Shai has asserted himself as this team's franchise player, deservedly so. I'm just waiting to see what he can do and how far he can lead OKC once there's adequate talent around him. And that means the young guys around him getting better, like Josh, Dort, Baisley, Pokusevski, and also Sam Presti adding like win now veterans and just talented veterans and role players to raise the floor of this team. Moving to prospects, there's a lot to talk about for OKC. We're going to dive into Josh Giddey first. Strengths, playmaking, finishing, and rebounding. He's a great rebounder from the perimeter, obviously showcasing those triple doubles he had on the season. His playmaking is self-explanatory. And in finishing, he shot 65% from 0 to 3 feet. He's big. He plays the shooting guard, point guard, or small forward position because of his skill set. He's 6'7", 6'8", got decent quickness, so that gives him a lot of avenues to finish inside, and he's really skilled and adept at using different angles to finish. And that's obviously his preferred way of scoring because he's not entirely confident in that three-point shot as of now. And talking about that three-point shot, that's where we're going to go into weaknesses, his outside shot, and honestly just his perimeter shot creation in general. That's going to be the thing to determine his ceiling, just how good of a player he can be at scoring outside. Just his lateral quickness, he's not the quickest guy on the perimeter, so he does kind of get exploited by quick guards and quick wings on the perimeter. But like I said, those two weaknesses are really going to determine his ceiling if he can improve in those areas. Against Dort, obvious strength, his perimeter defense. I talked about his inside scoring. I didn't talk about his free throw production though, as he got to the rim a lot and he drew a lot of fouls. And he was a really efficient free throw shooter, so that was a pretty heavy source of offense for him, those easy free throws that he was able to generate and convert on. For weaknesses, really just playmaking. That's a big one. He's got to get better at making the open pass and just being more efficient with his passes, having a bit better ball security. And though he made improvements on this year, his perimeter shot creation, he's not going to be somebody who's just going to be a bucket on the perimeter, but for him to further his game in terms of scoring the ball, that's really the prevalent hole. But I think the one thing that's going to determine his ceiling is going to be his playmaking. He's just got to be a much better passer for the role that he has on this team. Moving to Pokusevski, his strengths, playmaking, finishing, and disruptiveness. This is the demigod that was drafted 2 years ago. We knew Poku was going to be a project player, so obviously last season, his rookie season, we didn't really expect too much production right away. This season, while his numbers fell a little bit, his efficiency rose, and you actually also saw a higher impact on the defensive end as well. Poku's playmaking showcased itself a lot in the fast break, where he had more room to operate with the ball in his hands, and his finishing showed itself in the fast break and in the half-court setting, where he was able to make off-ball cuts and get some putbacks as well, just using all of his 6'11" and 7-foot frame. And that frame also allows him to be really disruptive on the defensive end with blocks and passing lane steals. Weaknesses, shooting. He still isn't really consistent from three-point land. Like, he can go a game where he's taking pull-ups when the defense is going under screens, hitting about 3 or 4 threes a game, to just not being a consistent and reliable catch and shoot guy. And in terms of ISO offense being another weakness, he doesn't really have it in himself right now, or just he doesn't have the tight enough handle to create offense without a screen in the NBA. And just developing his shot creation is going to be what takes Poku's game to the next level, and just being consistent. Darius Bazley is next. His strengths are rebounding, disruptiveness, and slashing. I think Bazley was OKC's best rebounder this year. He's really athletic. He's got good size at 6'8". That helps him a lot in terms of rebounding. And honestly, he was just really aggressive on the glass this year. I think Bazley was one of the more improved defenders for OKC. I think early on, his potential more lied on the lines of him being this athletic dude that could really shoot the ball from 3 and handle the ball on the perimeter. With the ball out of his hands a bit more, I think that led him to focus on the defensive aspect. Though the tough thing this year for Bazley was his shooting kind of fell again. Just comparing it to his rookie year, obviously he was playing with Shea, CP3, Danilo Gallinari. There wasn't going to be a lot of spotlight on Bazley, so that's where his three-point shooting shined. These past couple seasons, his efficiency from three-point land hasn't been anywhere near to that rookie production, so that's going to be a weakness. That is a weakness right now, his consistency from outside. And that's also going to be a ceiling determiner for him, just being more consistent from outside and having more of a defensive impact, because he has a good frame, he has good athleticism to really be a versatile defender. I think just continuing to improve on the defensive end, that's where he's going to generate a lot of value in this league. Moving to Trey Mann, he's a rookie out of Florida. His strengths were his three-point shooting and just being a natural shot creator, honestly. Tre Mann was probably the best three-point shooter on this team, on a team that didn't have really any three-point shooting. Tre Mann was the best spot-up shooter for OKC. And in a couple games where he was able to erupt for 25 or 30 points, he was able to showcase his natural shot creation ability. A lot of those games were played when either Josh Giddey was out, SGA out, or they both were out. And Tre Mann was literally the catalyst of the offense. He was kind of the only guy you could be confident in terms of having someone as a shot creator. Like, Tre Mann was the next guy up and the only guy up to fill that void. Areas for him to work on, though, just being more consistent on defense. He got bodied by a lot of screens in which he was not able to recover. And also, a weakness kind of is his size. Though he is 6'4", he's a bit thin, so he can get bullied by like shooting guards and small forwards when he gets switched onto like threes. He can get bullied by them when they get a step on him driving to the rim. He's not the best playmaker, so I think improving his playmaking and being a better passer, especially with him coming off the bench, I think that's going to unleash his game. And also just getting more opportunity. He saw his opportunities and chances rise mainly when Josh Giddey and Shea were out of the rotation, but if he can just be more of a focal point off the bench, giving Tre Mann that confidence to be that guy, that gung-ho shot creator, I think that will do wonders for his development in his second season. Lastly, I want to talk a bit about Isaiah Roby, because he was also a great shooter for OKC. He's playing a lot of center, a lot of small ball center, because the dude is only 6'8". So while he was getting overpowered by a lot of bruising big men at the 5 position, he was able to use his strengths to his advantage, and that was his shooting and really his mobility for being a quote-unquote big man. He was able to handle the ball really well for a 5. He was able to blow past a lot of 5s on the perimeter because they'd have to close out to his three-point shot. So Roby had a very unique offensive skill set for playing the 5 position for about half the time he was out there this season. So now we can delve into the offseason. Looking to the draft, OKC could fall between the 1 pick and the 8th spot. If they were to get lucky and get in the top 3, I think the best player for them to target is Chet Holmgren. JRE is cool. He's like their only center on roster right now besides Derek Favors and, like I said, Isaiah Roby. But Isaiah Roby is more of a power forward. But JRE, he's a 22-year-old right now, so he's like their most high-end / guy with potential at the 5 position right now. But I don't think he has that much high-end talent and potential at the 5. I think OKC kind of has to make that an area of focus, whether it's in the draft or in free agency. But if they were able to get lucky and land in the top 3, Chet would definitely be the guy for them to go after. The Thunder were already respectable on the defensive end with a team full of young guys, and Chet has Defensive Player of the Year potential somewhere down the road in his trajectory. So he can kind of really put them over the top as a dynamic rim protector, somebody being mobile enough to guard switches sometimes. But then on the offensive end, his spacing would be great operating with playmakers like Giddey and SGA. And with OKC being literally the worst shooting team in the league, Chet would be a perfect antidote for that. Jabari Smith is another good guy for them to target. Fit-wise, it isn't the best because it wouldn't really be able to unleash all of his on-ball shot creation early on, because obviously Shea is there. You want to have the ball in the hands of Josh Giddey so he can operate to his full potential playmaking. You throw Jabari in there, it might not be the best situation for him early on, but he is the best player available though, in my opinion. And if he's available and Chet is gone, OKC should 100% take him. I mean, if they get the number 1 pick, I think honestly they might take him too, just because he's just the best player available, even if I think Chet is the better fit. Jabari is still one of the best shooters in this class. He shot like 44% from 3 at Auburn, and it wasn't like he was only catching and shooting. He can definitely be a starting 4 out the gate because he's 6'10", even though he is a little scrawny. I think he can be a starting 4 out the gate, allowing the perimeter or the 1 through 3 lineup to be SGA, Josh Giddey, and Dort. The Thunder need a lot of offensive help in getting more shot getters outside of Shea and Dort, and to some extent Trey Mann. Just getting more people that can shot create would serve OKC for the best, and Jabari fits that profile. So if OKC isn't really able to get a top 3 pick, I think their best guy to target is Keegan Murray. He's the definition of efficient offense. He's a great 3-point shooter from the 4 position. He can handle the ball and finish at a high level in transition and in the half court, and he shows potential as a shot creator. He wasn't like the most natural guy creating in the mid-range, but he can definitely develop that aspect at his own pace behind the scoring of Shea and Lou, and he'll mainly benefit off the playmaking of Shea and Josh Giddey. Murray also has a lot of defensive versatility, and he can provide some immediate impact on the defensive end, and that fits the Thunder's need for more high-end talent in the front court. So significant upcoming free agents for OKC, there aren't really any that are too significant. No offense to anyone. So I'm just going to skip that part and just dive directly into the free agency focus. They're going to have around $20 million in cap space, which is a good amount for them to, spend a little bit. They have quite a few player needs. They need a shooter at any position because they are the worst shooting team in the league. They need a playmaking point guard. I think that would be best so that Terrence Mann could unleash his scoring potential as the main scorer off the bench and really just focus on that. Kind of similar to like Jordan Clarkson, who was early on in his career, he was trying to find the balance between playmaking and scoring for himself, when in all actuality he just needed to be in a situation where he could focus on putting the ball in the hoop. That's kind of what I compare Trey Mann's position to. And then the third need is for high IQ veterans at any position. These are guys that are just always good for a rebuild. So potential targets, one, I have Gary Harris. He fits that need for a shooter. He was a great shooter for the Magic last year, and he's a high IQ veteran. Like, Gary Harris is actually like 27 years old, which is kind of making me feel old because I remember when he was a rookie. There's no guarantee that the Magic really are going to be able to bring him back, and Gary might just want some brighter pastures somewhere else, so he might just be on the market. OKC probably would have to overpay for him a little bit because they're obviously not a playoff team, and playoff teams are going to be in the market for Gary Harris. So if OKC can overpay for a little bit, I think Gary might want to go there. Taurean Prince, he had a good year shooting for Minnesota and provided a lot of spacing for them. He's a good versatile defender at the forward position. You probably could get him for like $6 to $10 million. DeLon Wright would be a really good playmaking point guard for OKC to add. I think the fit with him next to Trey Mann would work wonders off the bench. Tyus Jones from Memphis. He's been vital for Memphis's stellar year, but he might be seeking a big payday if Memphis doesn't really want to give that out to him. I think OKC will probably have to pay closer to $12 million to try and woo him away from Memphis. Lastly, Thaddeus Young. This is, Thaddeus Young fits the high IQ need of OKC. But Thaddeus is getting a little bit old, so he might want to really compete for a championship. He might prioritize that a bit more because he hasn't won one thus far in his career, so he might prioritize that a bit more. Moving to the trade market, I don't really think OKC has anybody they want to offload. Like, Derek Favors is going to accept his player option, yeah, but I don't think he's somebody that OKC needs to worry about, oh, we need to get him off the team as soon as possible. He'd be cool if he was still on the team. I don't think other contending teams are desperate to add Derek Favors either. And there's not really specific players on the market that I think OKC is going to be targeting via trade. So I have 2 predictions for OKC. I don't have a lot, but this is a soft one. OKC trades for a pick in the lottery. They have a shit ton of futures to trade, and maybe some players towards the end of their 15-man rotation that they don't really view as essential that they could attach to the trade. Or maybe I just said Derek Favors isn't that vital in the trade market, but fuck it. Maybe Derek Favors and a couple of future first and second round picks for another pick in the lottery is something that's enticing to another team. And my second prediction, I'm going to say OKC wins the lottery. They get the number 1 pick and they draft Jabari Smith. It's a matter of time before they win one of these lotteries, so why not this year? Like I said earlier, Chet is the best fit, but Jabari Smith is the best player available in my opinion. I expected OKC to be in the running for the #1 pick come the end of the season, though I did have 3 important questions about the team. Would SGA continue cementing himself as OKC's franchise player? Was Dort's sophomore emergence a fluke? And did OKC reach on selecting Josh Giddey at number 7? Starting with Shai, despite inconsistency from 3, and missing almost a third of the year with injury, I think he solidified himself as someone OKC builds around. Dort's efficiency dipped, but he improved his scoring average for the 2nd season in a row to 17 per game. The next step in his development is improving as a playmaker. As for Josh, he was described as one of the best passers in the draft class, and he literally was OKC's most prolific playmaker, assists per game wise. The sky's the limit for him if he rounds out his scoring attack. Looking to the offseason, OKC has quite a bit of money to play with, and they should allocate it in the direction of adding a couple of snipers from 3 in free agency, as they were the league's worst shooting team percentage-wise from downtown. We know about Sam Presti's stash of first-round picks for the rest of the century. OKC has a solid chance to win a top 3 pick, in which their best options would be either Chet or Jabari, but I think it's more likely for them to find themselves in the 4 to 8 range, in which the best direction is floor spacing versatile forward Keegan Murray. It's safe to say that OKC has their franchise player in Shai Gilgeous, but the heights that he can take the Thunder to will depend on what happens around him. Can Josh Giddey fulfill his all-star potential? Same goes to whoever's selected in the 2022 lottery. What are the ceilings of guys like Dort, Poku, Mann, and Bazley? Shai is one of my favorite players in the league, but for the Thunder to return to the Western playoff picture, he's going to need some adequate support.